Hey Soraya, how's it going?
Hey Jeff, how are you?
I'm doing pretty well, all things considered. Some crazy days, but we're
Look,
hanging in
these
there.
are these are nutty times. And as everyone knows, Jeff and I are in Southern California. I'm a little closer to Los Angeles. I live in a suburb of Los Angeles. Jeff is a little further out, but still, we're California people, and um, these are these are trying times.
Yeah,
And so, but there's an expression in Spanish, and I'll save that for another day. You can email me if you want to know the actual expression, but to difficult days, we give hope. And so for us, hope has always involved music. And so we'll face the days and let the songwriters sing and tell our stories. So,
absolutely.
that being said, Jeff, we always are able to find really interesting songwriters and people to come and share their work on the show. So why don't you let our listeners know who will be joining us today?
Yes, so today, Soraya, we're going to be joined by George Huntley. George was the lead guitarist, one of the singers, and songwriters from the band the Connells. That were based out of Raleigh, North Carolina, that began in the 80s. Lately, we've been doing a little bit of jangle rock, a little side street that we've been taking away from the main avenue of Paisley Underground. So we had the bongos. We've talked to people from Salem 66, Guadalcanal Diary frontman Murray Attaway. So the Connells definitely fit into that jangle rock thing, but George was much like another George, George Harrison of the Beatles, where he was the lead guitar player, sang backup, and was allotted a song or two on each of the later albums, and that's kind of what George's role was, among others, in the Connells. The Connells had a huge breakout hit in Europe with a song called 74, 75,
Right.
which did amazing, overseas. Did okay over here, but not quite what it did over there. And couple albums later, George decided to leave the band. He had too many songs, and not enough were allocated to the Connells, so we'll talk about that. But much like Murray Attaway, Soraya, George went and did a solo album, and this was 1995. He did this one, Brain Junk, and here we
Right.
are 3 decades later, and his second,
Literally.
the follow-up. Yeah, much like Murray Attaway. So there's some ties there. So he's got a new album called Higher Spirits that was just released last month, and it's probably my favorite album of the year so far. We're halfway through, but um alongside Vicky Peterson and John Cowsill's
Uh,
album, there's a great Bob Mould album. Um, but as far as new releases, this among a couple others is definitely one of my favorites. The Probably the album that Chris and I listen to the most. It's only available on downloading and streaming. We'll have to ask about that. No physical copies yet. But I made a CD version that I play in my old 2010 car Snowball, my Honda Fit. And it's been in there. Chris and I have probably played it 60 times at least. I can't get myself to eject my CDR version of this album. But, anyways, long story short, George Huntley is our guest today, and we'll be talking about his new release, Higher Spirits.
Absolutely. So, Jeff, I think we should just jump right into it.
Let's do it.
Hi, this is Soraya.
And this is Jeff,
Our podcast is called Paisley Stage Raspberry and Rhyme.
a podcast where the two of us play music that we like and share anecdotes and background about the tunes.
We hope you'll join our conversation. And without further ado, a grooviar.
Let's get groovy. All right, Soraya, you want to get us started officially?
Yes. So joining us today, as those of you who are watching on YouTube can see, the one and only George Huntley from, formerly of the Connells, but sharing his new solo album with us, Higher Spirit. Thank you so much. Welcome, welcome, welcome.
Yay. Welcome, George.
Thank you for having me today. This is really fun to get to sit around and talk with you all about this new project. I appreciate the opportunity.
Well, we're really glad. I was telling Soraya that your new record, which just came out or was just released last month, is my favorite of the year so far. There's a couple other pretty good albums that came out. I really do like the Vicky Peterson, John Cowsill album a lot. Bob Mould had a really good album that came out. There's a couple others, but Christina and I have listened to this album at least 60 times. I'll have to explain why in a minute. But before we get into all that, we wanted to backtrack a little bit. As Soraya mentioned, George was formerly in a band called the Connells. And every once in a while, they would let him sing a song on this one, 1934, on this one, Sal and Motel, like some of the more fan appreciated songs for sure. On this one, my all-time favorite Connell's song, "The Joke," and my one of my all-time favorite songs, period, by any band. But anyways, on all these, George was given a song or two, "Doing You." Um, but then at some point, I know, George, you had way more songs than you were allowed to do with the band. So we had this release, Brain Junk. Mine's got your scribbling all over it. Um, but this was mine and Christina's favorite album up until Higher Spirits. But this is also a great album that George had. And Soraya, we were talking, much like Murray Attaway, who had a solo release in the 80s and now just 30 years later has released his second solo album. Much like that, George has done the same. So second album, here we are 30 years later after Brain Junk, Higher Spirits, and it's amazing, George.
Thank you, Jeff.
We absolutely love it. Why now? Why 30 years later? Why decide to release your sophomore release? Was there a little slump for 30 years? What happened?
No, I think when I left the Connells, I think sometime around 2003, let's say 2002, 3, I had two small sons, Sam and Aaron, and my wife Amelia and I, we needed to do that. We needed to be a family. And I could not envision even keeping the Connells as a side gig. It just was too much. On these little weekend tours we were doing there towards the end, it was too hard to come home and have my infant son sort of hesitate to come to me because you know there was one moment where I felt like, oh, I have to sort of give him some space to let him find me. And so the greatest opportunity presented itself, and I um, raised a family. And Amelia and I now have three sons, and Sam is 20, almost 26. Aaron is almost 24. David just turned 16. And we've just had a great time. And, you know, music just became a subtext. It was a former occupation. I would occasionally play neighborhood parties. There were events in my life that brought me back into music. I had an older brother, Neil, who got very sick, and so we worked up a set of gospel music to sing, and it helped Neil cope with the pain of his neuropathy. To your listeners out there that may have a little neuropathy, Neil taught me that singing is a great medicine. Uh,
Wow.
we used to call it a molecular massage, and I would come to see Neil, and I would hear him singing, and that usually meant that he was uncomfortable. So, there were times in the last 30 years where, last 20 years or so, that music came back. And then, of course, the pandemic hit, and there was a need to raise money for local uh, clubs that were, shut down. And so we did this internet thing. This one day back in 2020, it was April 2020, right at the very beginning. And I just got so much jazz out of that. I mean, it just felt so fun. Sam set me up in the basement, and Aaron and David and Amelia and our neighbors sat out in the driveway and watched it on their computers. And something sort of happened that day. And so I think really the beginning of Higher Spirits was uh, that was the conception date, April 2020. And then um, here we are talking about it.
Awesome. So Soraya and I were talking a little bit about how to define this type of music, and putting artists into a box is the worst thing that you can do. But
Right.
for our listeners who don't know, we were describing maybe singer-songwriter, a little bit of folk, maybe a little tiny bit of country, but definitely Americana vibe.
Hmm.
Maybe a little heavy metal, maybe a little punk rock. Maybe not so much the last two, but have you ever thought that you had to? I know John Prine was one of your heroes. Have you ever thought about how to describe your music, or did you ever felt any need that you had to put yourself in that kind of a box?
Well, we just recently did this replacements tribute show here, and John Worster played drums for me, and he plays for Bob Mould, and Danny Johnson from Jack the Radio played guitar, and Will Edwards played bass, and we, you know, I don't know, maybe it's just because this is so fresh, but Paul Westerberg certainly had more punk rock in his life. I think I think I identify with Paul in some weird sort of way. We use different language. But I think I would cite him as a hero, as a big influence on me. Not so much, for any other reason than just his authenticity.
Oh,
But I think I probably uh, diverged from him, and maybe it was as much a geographical thing, growing up in Raleigh versus growing up in Minneapolis. And I don't know, but I would say that, there's probably, if you got to put yourself in a box, I would say that I'm sort of a uh, southern alternative rock based um, folk singer, I guess, storyteller. I like storytellers, uh, the phrase better than folk singer.
Soraya
Yeah.
is a big fan of storytellers, right, Soraya?
Yes. Yeah, I am.
Mhm.
And one of the things, George, that struck me when I was listening to Higher Spirits was exactly that, that you tell these stories. And I told Jeff, when I finished listening to the album, it, and again, it could be the timing, it could be so many things, but I just felt that there was this warmth, there was this homecoming at the end. And it's probably because you've told me all these stories through 11 tracks, and in it, there's a different spirit. Like each story has just takes me down a different road. And I was here for the whole thing of it, and then by track 11, I said, that was a that was a really good journey. So I have to thank you for these stories that you tell. I listen to the lyrics, I read them like they're books. So I want to thank you for that.
I need to figure out a way to get the lyrics out there. I've had some people asking to see them, and I would like to figure out a way to publish them, but I'm not doing any. There's no real release here. This is just a streaming, and I don't
Uh,
have a machine behind me at all. So
can I share something with you?
please do.
So, because it is a streaming release, and yes, you can find it on a number of streaming platforms. You can even find it on YouTube, streaming on YouTube as well. But I came across a site that has the lyrics to these songs.
Seriously.
Yes,
Oh,
sir.
well, I did. put them in the Distro Kid. I did I did put the lyrics into the. I guess that's like when you publish it through DistroKid. So
Well,
maybe that's how they got populated.
this is a website. It's called boomplay.com. And because I started searching to see if maybe they were somewhere, and I came across, and it's got all the lyrics to all your songs on
Wow.
this album. So, I listened to it a separate time reading the lyrics, but the first couple of times it was just you telling me the story.
Well, it could
And
be AI generated too.
I
I
don't know,
yeah,
but
I'll have to check that
yeah,
out.
I'll share the link, but this is
Okay.
where I stumbled across this, but
That's good to
I
hear.
yeah, but if it didn't come from you, you need to you need to have the traffic at least come through you so that it's
Yeah.
properly credited and everything. But I did want to ask it. So you say April 2020 is kind of the genesis of where this album came from. And when did you know? Okay, now I've written enough songs, I've got it. Now let's put it together.
Well, the truth is that there's so many songs. I have so many songs, and these were just the first ones that percolated to the top. And I think of the 11, Irish Twins is new, Real News is new. Um, let's see, To Love You is an old. Let's see, To Love You is an old one. Wilson is new, and that's it. So there's only three. When I say new, I mean in the last few years,
Hmm.
and all the others are through through time. I think Mike Connell and I sang "Dueling with the Daisies" at a for a video at our elementary school that was celebrating a 50-year. Uh, when would that have been? Maybe a 70-year, like in 1999. Mike and I took acoustic guitars over and we sang "Dueling with the Daisies" for Wiley Elementary, and so, I mean, some of these songs are they've just been beating around inside of my head. And, Dueling with the Daisies really was a dream that I had of having sons, of wanting to play with little boys in my yard. And that song was a dream, was a wish to the universe that was delivered 100-fold. And um, so that had to be on there. But there's so many that I haven't recorded yet, and I think uh, I'm going to. Oh, and one of the songs on here. Well, we're going to go through and talk about these songs.
Okay.
Can we do
Okay.
that? Yeah, can we go through each one of them?
Yeah.
Let's start with the opening track, which is Dueling with the Daisies.
What a great story too to lead into that.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, absolutely. So the opening track, Dueling with the Daisies.
Could do with a little sun, could do without the rain. And if it never snows again, that's okay. Could do with a lot of sand and roll it in the waves. Celebrate a summertime a long way, yeah. Dueling with the daisies in the fields so long. Laying on lace, and how could this be wrong? Yes, I've been dueling with the daisies in the fields so long. And I'm playing with my lioness, and there's nothing wrong.
George, I don't know if you know this, but I'm really big on sequencing. I think this was the perfect opening track out of these 11 songs. You picked, or whoever picked the right song to start this with. This was one of two songs that I was kind of familiar with. I think you sent me a demo tape that had 6 songs on it years ago, maybe
yeah,
a decade and a half ago, maybe 2 decades. And this was one of the songs that I was familiar with. And you're singing about your lioness, which I'm
yeah.
guessing is Amelia, your wife. Um, so dueling with the daisies, what does that phrase mean?
It means uh, killing time doing nothing but everything. You're doing nothing at all, but it's everything at the same time. It's a I don't know if you have this place where you go and you're in your imagination where you're just in this sunny field and you're attentive to your hearing, you're attentive to your sight, you're attentive to your smell, and it's a meditative state. And I think I mastered it when we were on the road. You're riding down the highway and you're sitting looking out the window, and I could truthfully say that I spent a lot of the road hours in sort of a meditative dream state. And a lot of these songs, the backdrops for a lot of these songs are, in my mind, I have a real visual landscape that I see behind the lyrics. And that one, Dueling with the Daisies, and now that I have children, I see my sons in that visual landscape. And I see my wife and I see us sitting outside. And, but the song was written before that. So there, I'm a dreamer.
I love it. You're manifesting it.
Yeah.
All right. Then we move into track 2, Real News.
The wine doesn't flow like before, and the time isn't yours anymore, and your mind walked right out of that door. But it's not a real news. It's not a real news.
I want to know, so you mentioned some of the songs had their genesis early on, some later. When Real News comes about, was this another kind of messaging? Because there's a line that I find really clever, and it's "the time isn't yours anymore."
Well, I guess it's been 2 years, but Amelia and I went out to eat dinner with a friend and his new partner. And she told us this story about her husband saving a son at the beach in the ocean and losing his own life in the process. And we came home, and it was just her story. And I went to bed and I woke up a few hours later and I came in my office and I wrote this song. So I know this song was influenced by me getting in the head of that little boy and thinking about his story and his life. And no one will be able to take that story out of him. It will be like a tattoo on his soul that my dad died saving my life. And I lost my dad when I was 13. And so I know about these tattoos, And so, the song though, when I think about that, when I told Amelia that I'd written the song and that I thought it was influenced by this real life story, we talked about it and everything. And I think she helped me see that it's again part of this, everything is happening but nothing is really going on. And real news is happening all around us all the time. People are just having these incredible experiences that are real news experiences for them in their lives, that are tattoos on their soul. And Soraya may not know about it. Jeff may not know about it, but George doesn't know about it either. And I don't know. I guess it just sort of struck me as part of the poignancy of our existence. You know how so much is going on all around us to the people that we meet. And, you know, my wife she's such a huge influence on me. She's such a lovely individual, and one of the early things that she would do is when we would drive places and we'd see like somebody panhandling on the side of the road, or you know, she would almost like it, she was speaking to herself. She would say, "That's someone's child," and you know that image has well, I mean, it's been a big influence on me of looking at the world that way, that we're all someone's children.
That's a good thing to keep in mind too.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That all these real news events,
yeah.
they're always happening and they're happening to all of us, and we are somebody's child.
Mm.
We're constantly being impacted. That's really poignant. Thank you.
And from a musical standpoint, Soraya and I were talking about there's some nice lap steel sounds in here. I think is that what it is, a lap steel or
It is actually pedal steel. It's Greg Redling from Chatham County Line. He's a friend of mine, uh, and he's a marvelous musician, a wonderful guy. If you've never heard Chatham County Line, check them out. They're a local band from around here. And Greg just came in, and Ryan Pickett helped me. You know, he produced this record, and Ryan's been a friend for a long time. In fact, those recordings that I sent you years ago were recorded by Ryan in
oh,
his old garage recording studio, and Ryan's still with me. And Ryan and I were talking with Greg about this thing about this landscape, and part of the visual image for Real News, which we're doing a little video for it. There's my son Aaron has recently moved back to Raleigh from New York, and his girlfriend Linda Garcia has a friend, and Nina Haviland is putting together a little video uh, for Real News, and she came to town the other day, and we just got in the car, and I just had this vision for Real News of, you know how we keep talking about this, everything is happening but nothing is happening. We just drove down Hillsborough Street, which has been my street that I would go to my whole life. When State won the national championship, when in '74, when they were in the Final Four last year, you know, we it's magnetism. We go to Hillsborough Street. So I told her I just wanted to ride down Hillsborough Street really low. I wanted to make people behind me honk, and I wanted her to stick her hand with a camera out the rooftop and just slowly pivot and just film Hillsborough Street. And then we went downtown, and we did some 360 just video stuff. And that's kind of what we're talking about here, is just everything and nothing all at the same time. It seems to be a mantra for this record. So that video will be out soon. I don't know when. We're close. Um, yeah.
well, I'm looking forward to seeing that. That sounds like be a great visual to accompany like a great track. The song is super vibey. I love
Yeah.
those, but I'm gonna repeat myself that I love the song on all 11 of these. But up next, let's move on to number three, A Farm Family Thanks. So
Thank me for our plans ahead. Thank me for our daily bread. Thank me for our peace of mind. Thank me for all humankind. Thank me for a host of things. God, my glad heart sings.
So this one it definitely sounds like a song of Thanksgiving. It almost sounds like a prayer. When I hear it, it comes across like a prayer. Can you tell us about A Farm Family Thanks?
Well, my grandmother on my mother's side, my mother's mother, wrote this poem in, we think, 1954. They lived on a farm, and they had built a pond using tractors. And she was born in the 1890s, and she never saw an automobile until she was an adult. And she had a tremendous influence over me and my brothers and sisters and my cousins. And it's a very big, tight knit family with this just uh, incredibly soulful lady uh, as our as our grandmother. And she took us out to sit on this rock, and she would tell us stories. We would walk and pick blackberries, wild strawberries, and I didn't know her until she was older, but she wrote this poem, this prayer, uh, one day when they had dug this pond, and she had a chest, like a chest full of things that she'd written, and they were sometimes on scraps of paper. And this, I have a photocopy of the original, and clearly she had been out working and she had written it and come in and just written it down in her lovely cursive script. And there's not even one word that's marked out. She had this thing uh, in her mind. And being a songwriter, I know that sometimes lyrics are given to you. I know they just sort of trickle down out of the sky. You know what I mean, Jeff?
Yeah, yeah.
And she I think she cultivated that part of her brain. She had a very creative mind and a very, very loving spirit, and she was a very she was a very devout person, and she gave a lot of her time and energies to others. And so back in the 80s, my mother's little sister, my Aunt Betsy Blankenship, gave me and my brother Neil a copy of this poem. And I put music to it, and we used to sing it at family gatherings. I've sung it at family weddings over the years. We sing it at family reunions, and some of the kids will have put a little dance to it. And so my son Sam plays drums on it. My son Aaron plays bass and guitar on it, and Greg Redling plays pedal steel. And so it's a really important song on this record for me. That might be Soraya. That might be the song that I felt like I really needed to record. I feel like I've kind of done this. I needed to do a good recording for my people, and I think that was the real reason I dusted off my feelings about making a record and that song.
It sounds like this song is like a musical family portrait. The way you describe it, it's really beautiful. And I like that it has this tie to so many elements
Yeah.
of your and generations and iterations of your family. I think it's really lovely. Okay, so now
We got a guest.
I see the guest host.
Hey,
Hey,
Chris.
Hi.
Chris, you haven't changed in 35
Oh,
years.
wow. Neither have you.
Come join
Hi,
us.
Soraya.
Hey. All right, Chris. We're just about to talk about the fourth track, Chi Chi.
Cheese biscuits, rice perfectly shortened. Chicken broccoli really brings in the herd. And the cookies are a phenomenon. Pimento cheese, it remedies disorder. Pleasant discourse brings ease to the day. Did I mention the cookie phenomenon?
Oh, Chi-Chi, yeah.
Okay.
Which means something totally different to Chris than it
And
probably
to me
does
too,
to
but
George.
Don't ask
wait,
me any
but
questions.
but Chi Chi has a lot of these kind of southern symbols in there. What is Chi Chi about?
Chi-Chi was the name of our monkey. She, in 1968, my brother Wilson went up to Cameron Village to the Doctor Pet Center, and they had a little window glass full of squirrel monkeys. And in 1968, we did not know how they were capturing these monkeys. We did not know that they were usually shooting the mothers and taking the babies. We didn't find that out till after we had Chi Chi. And so Wilson was 12 years old. I was 6 years old. And Neil and Roy and Nancy were all older. And Wilson came home and said to my dad, he said, "Dad, if you'll let me get this monkey, I'll never ask for anything ever." And my dad apparently said to my mother, "Well, I always wanted a donkey." And so he allowed Wilson to get this monkey.
Wow.
And one of my brothers had a friend that was a good carpenter, and Reed Whitley built this. No, you know what? I think it was our neighbor, Mr. Hilton, built this really big cage. And Wilson and I lived on the sun porch at the time, which was full of windows. And it was unheated and uncooled. And so Wilson got a coffee can and put a light bulb in it and would wrap a towel around it. And Chi-Chi would snuggle up to that can and it would be warm. That's how she got warm in the winter. And we had a couch and an old Zenith black and white TV, and we would sit on the couch and she would get under the blanket with us. And she was like, she was an amazing pet. She'd sit on your shoulder. She'd look in your ears. She'd look through your hair. She would break out of the living room. Break off the sun porch and come downstairs. And the spaghetti references to the night that Roy came home. My older brother, Roy, was drafted during Vietnam and joined the Navy. And Roy came home and was downstairs, and Chi-Chi heard him and figured out how to get the door open and came down and went right onto Roy's plate, grabbed 2 handfuls of spaghetti. My dad went, "Whoa!" and took off, and she bound around and got spaghetti everywhere. And, and we just had this great time. And if Wilson ever left for an extended period of time, she was going to find a way to get out and look for him. And one time she got out, and it was just Mom and I at home. And one of the kids in the neighborhood came home and said, "I know where Chi-Chi is. I know where Chi-Chi is. I was just listening to the radio, and these college boys called up and said on the local talk radio, they said, there's a monkey that just came in our window, is sitting here watching TV, eating popcorn with us. And so Ali Ibrahim was the name of the boy. And Ali called the radio station and said, tell those boys to keep that monkey. The Huntleys are coming to get him.
Oh,
Get her. And so
oh,
me and Mom grabbed our little portable cage and went and got Chi-Chi. And then when Wilson left, we gave Chi-Chi to the Durham Life and Sciences Museum. They had a bunch of these monkeys there. And we went back a year later to see her, and she had a little baby.
oh, in captivity.
Yeah. Yeah.
As the song says. Yeah.
And there was a real wistful moment there where Wilson, who at the time was 19, Chi-Chi lived with us for 6 years. And I remember looking at Wilson, and Wilson turned around and looked at me. Wilson was not an emotional guy like I am. And he turned around, he looked at me, and he said, we should leave. She doesn't need to see us. She doesn't need to see us. And he knew, I think he just knew that it was better for her not to see us.
Oh.
And Wilson was a real leader in my life. And he was a great big brother. And that little moment there where I watched his profile looking at Chi-Chi, and I saw Chi-Chi looking at him. And so there's always been just this little tinge of, having been a part of her life and you can't help but humanize your pets. And she was really something. We always knew she loved us, that we were kind of her boys,
So speaking about something special, can you tell us about the cookies? Were they really phenomenal?
I still have this problem. I eat way too many cookies, and I start hallucinating.
Musically speaking, I think there's a stand-up bass, a double bass. Is that what I'm hearing?
That's right. Very good, Jeff. Yeah, that's Aaron, my middle son.
Oh.
Yeah, Aaron plays on that. And let me see. So Darren Jesse might play drums on Chi-Chi. I think Darren Jesse plays drums on Chi-Chi. He was in Ben Folds 5. He was a drummer for Ben Folds, and
okay.
He was in Hotel Lights, and Darren is a phenomenal musician, just all around. Great singer. He's a really Darren Jesse, Jessee. I did a show with him in Greensboro. It was lovely. But he played drums on several of these songs.
Okay. All right. Last thing about Chi-Chi before we move on to the next song. Is it pecan or pecan?
Oh, so there's also pecan, which is the way they say it in New Orleans.
Okay.
Pecan. That's Jimmy Descant was our tour manager, and he used to say mayonnaise and pecan. And so I say pecan, pecan, and pecan. And I kind of mess it up at the end, but I do love pecan.
So that's how the song ends. Okay, so here we are. We're up to song number 5, The Last Rendezvous.
Best I saw came and went. The best we could do. The last rendezvous. Another moment. Forward in time, and it's true. A real promenade. I got a fever past 99. And I'm here to let you know you'll be fine.
And I did want to mention that Chi-Chi is in 3/4 timing, as is The Last Rendezvous, and is Irish Twins and Lost and Lonely Days. So we got four songs in three-fourths timing. I wanted to ask you a little bit about the sequencing on that later. But Last Rendezvous, I think it's Christina's favorite song on the album. Whenever it comes up, she's like, I love this song, but I think this is one of her favorite. I think I heard a version that you recorded with the Connells way back when that didn't make it onto a record because I have it on a tape and it says recorded by the Connells. I don't know, but
No, they
okay,
never.
okay.
They, yeah, I don't even think they ever heard this one.
Okay. But this was another one I recall hearing many, many years ago on a demo tape that you sent. And I love the sentiment, the end of the chorus where you sing, and I'm here to let you know you'll be fine. Soraya was saying, especially during these times in Southern California, it's a little bit turbulent.
Yeah.
It's a great sentiment to hear you say that in your voice and your timbre to say that you're here to let us know that we'll be fine. Did you have somebody specifically in mind you were singing to? A child, a family member, a friend?
You know, when I talk to my children, um, one of the things that I to take, if I had to talk to one of my sons about something important, a lot of times I would talk to them about me. And my approach to talking to them about something heady was to say, if I could go back in time and tap myself on the shoulder at certain times, I would go back and tell myself, just don't worry too much. It's going to be fine. And the object there for me was to give my son in that moment a sense that I still saw him as being relatable. And no matter what he did, I still relate to him. And I myself have had times when, there was some symbiotic shared experience happening here. And the idea is just to kind of help calm things down. Now, but that's not what the song really was about. A conversation that I had with a guy that I went to high school with, he was the lead in the play. He wrote these really great songs. He was funny as hell. He was really good looking. He's black belt in karate. I mean, he was just a complete package. He's a really good friend growing up. And he was always better than me at everything. And yet, we somehow sort of had this friendship that I knew that he had this egotistical way of looking at the world. He had a superiority complex. I could see it. And throughout the years, I would talk to him about things like how important it was to go make up to your mom. And after his parents split up, he was so mad with his mom. And I said, dude, you can't live that way. You can't torture her for taking control of her own life. And so we had that kind of relationship after high school. And one day, we were probably in our 30s, and he called me up and he was really distressed. And he was upset about his job. And I listened to him for a good long time. And I just told him, I said, you just go look for something else. You're not married to that job. And we talked about it. And it was a musical job. He was writing soundtrack stuff for trailers and things. And it was really important to him that he get this thing right. And we just had this really long conversation about opening other doors and looking in other corners and remembering that you've got all these other things going on. And it was sometime around that time where I was kind of worried about him, that the Last Rendezvous, and you know, he was the kind of guy that never lived here. When he moved away, he would just come back once a year, and when he would come back, we would go do something, and me and another buddy, and the three of us would go out and just sort of be together like brothers. And so that was really what that was. It was just it came out of a conversation where I was worried about a friend.
It's a very sweet sentiment,
Hmm.
and it's very heartwarming.
And I find it an interesting lead in to the next track, the Irish Twins.
Yeah.
When the Irish twins sang, it was a lovely thing, and everyone was falling in love with those two. For those who love us will never leave us alone with our grief. To the voice deep inside of me, went up and cried at me, no one to the rescue. Something better is waiting for sure.
Because in the story you're telling here, there is some of that. It appears that some of that topic carries over, and I want to highlight just these three lines. For those who love us, never leave us alone with our grief. To the voice deep inside of me that up and cried in me, no one to the rescue, something better is waiting for sure.
Yeah.
That
Pure fantasy,
message.
Soraya.
That's deep.
Pure
That's
fantasy.
deep.
You know, I know I was coming. I mean, so my brother Neil died in 2014. We were very close growing up. That was really hard. And then my brother Wilson died in 2020, and that was really hard. You know, you think that your siblings are going to grow old with you forever, and they both died. And I think that even though that song isn't about that, that the grief that I was working through was still part of me. And so when I was writing Irish Twins, maybe 3 years ago now, I was still coping with this burdensome baggage of grief on my shoulders. And it's funny, you know, I think in some ways I was really trying to write a song that was more fantastical, you know, girls coming out of the fire, you know, fanning their pheromones to find their beau. You know, I was kind of trying to be sort of maybe whimsical is a good word. But the story was about that time that I went out to Chico, California back in the 80s. And I met two people out there that I just loved. I just loved them. They were two of the coolest people, and they both ended up moving to Raleigh.
Wow.
And they were both Irish Americans. And so being Irish Americans in California was they had, even though they were not super close, I think the three of us were close, but the Irish Catholic thing was a big part of both of them, but one was a female and one was a male, so there was this different sort of thing, but still a very powerful sense of tradition emanated from them. And they were my age, and they moved to Raleigh, and they had a huge influence over people here. They both did. They brought something really unique and magical to Raleigh. And so I didn't necessarily set up to write a song about them, but it ended up becoming about them.
Mm-hmm.
And even though they weren't really together, they were together for me as a friend, and one as a girlfriend and one as a friend.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll never be able to separate one from the other. And so, yeah, and I haven't talked to either one of them specifically about the song. I know that they probably know that it's about them, but I mean, there's nothing in there that would be the grief part. Soraya, you probably hit on the thing that was really just me getting in the way. My emotions kind of got in the way on that one.
I think it adds to this story. And then I have to ask, because I told Jeff this was one of the surprises in the song. These horns come.
Oh yeah,
These horns come in, and I wasn't ready. And I go,
yeah,
wait. And it just
yeah,
makes this song just it changed for me.
yeah.
So was that the visual landscape that you were and musical landscape you were imagining for this song?
Yeah, so the trumpet was always in my head. I would when we do the song live, I do the ba ba da da ba 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 ba. I always heard the horns, and I always heard the horn harmony. And Kelly Pratt, who's in is it Father Misty Mountain? Is that right? Father Mountain Misty.
I think it
Sorry,
is Misty
sorry,
Mountain.
Kelly, I can't remember the name of your band. But Kelly Pratt came in and played, and then he said, I hear a little flute under here, and I said, yeah, I don't really hear flute, but yeah, go ahead, put it down. We probably won't use it. He said, no, it's good. It's okay. You don't have to use it. But I heard this part, and when he played it, I thought, yeah, it's a little folky. It's a little folky, but the way Ryan mixed it, it worked. And yeah, it was part of the original concept for the song was to put the horns in there.
So the last question I had on musically for the Irish Twins, is that an EBO that you're using, the little electronic device? It sounds like the guitar has some kind of effect on it, if that is in fact the guitar.
So that Irish Twins is where I switch over to the band. And Andrew Brannon is playing EBO and guitar on that song. Alex Lawhon is doing backing vocals and acoustic guitars. Scott Carl from Dylan Fence is playing drums,
Oh, nice.
and Tom Mills is playing bass, and Ryan Pickett, of course, is producing it. And so the rest of the songs out, the next six are the full band,
Okay, okay. So
and no more of the other five were done at a separate session.
okay, okay. So next up, Lost and Lonely Days.
And all of those lost, lonely days. And all of those lost, lonely days. But don't you tell me they were.
Yeah.
So this one also 3/4 timing. This is more of a waltz, has more of a waltz feel. The dun 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 dun. The great backing vocals on this one, by the way, and I love the chorus on this. Can I sidetrack a little bit and ask about sequencing? Did you intentionally put these 4/3/4 timing songs together? Or did it just work out that way? I'm real curious how this was sequenced.
Jeff, I think the sequencing was probably influenced by the order that we worked on the songs. And we never really thought too much about keys or time signatures. But I do think when I was originally putting these together, this particular sequence they were always in this order.
Okay. Okay.
And I never deviated. On the first five, I deviated. I really played with the first five, but the second six, they were always in that order.
Okay. Okay. Fair enough. Is there anything that any fun facts that you want to tell us about Lost and Lonely Days or about what was going through your mind writing that or anything before we move on?
Boy, that's an oldie. That goes way, way, way back, and I think that probably was written at a time when I was trying to decide to leave the Connells and become a full-time realtor and father and husband and son. And it was hard because I had poured so much of myself into it, and I felt in some ways incapable of doing it. And so I think when I think about that song, tragically chiseled in stone, that was about me just being hard hearted about how everything was, just coming to an end. And I knew that it needed to break. I knew it needed to break. And it was really hard because it was a very upsetting thing to be part of. In fact, David Connell and I, every now and then, will have a conversation, and I still think David and I knew each other since I was 5 and he was 6.
Wow.
It's me leaving the band changed our relationship, and but we still get together and we still laugh and still talk. But I'll occasionally, he's the only one that I can really say, yeah, does it still kind of suck, and he'll say, it had to happen. But he was probably my closest friend in the band.
Wow.
Yeah.
So, so we have this kind of cycle closing, and then we move into track 8, To Love You.
Yeah.
Whenever I hear, oh, I hear where you've been, but it hurts to the quick, 'cause you said it like a friend, and I said I would. I said I promised to love you, to love you, to love you, to love you.
And this little line here gets me. But you leave home and take all your things. I bet you'll be back to start it all again. I said I would, said I'd promise to love you. Those lines, it's like it's grabs me.
Thank you, Soraya. Yeah, that's another really old one that, interestingly enough, was a waltz time for years. Me and Brent Wilson performed it. A childhood friend of mine, Brent Wilson, and I are somewhere in the internet. Where we played the Love Hangover, and Brent and I decided to do two men for the Love Hangover. Normally, it's a man and a woman, and I think Brent and I broke the gender barrier there. And but Brent and I've been singing that song since the mid '90s. We had a little set that we used to do together. He and his brother David, who played bass, who's no longer with us, and so Brent, that song was a waltz for a long time, and then when I brought it to the band, I made it into a thrash 4/4 song, and it just works. It just works with them. Yeah, that's how that happened.
I agree.
Hmm.
All right, so moving on to track number 9. You've already talked a lot about your brother Wilson. The song is in fact titled Wilson. And I think of these 11, it's the most that could fit on to this stylistically.
Mm.
It sounds like it has that vibe.
And if he ever hated, I never saw it, I never saw it any old way. One more time, I don't want to go back, 'cause I don't want to say goodbye. One more time, I don't want to go back, 'cause I don't want to say goodbye.
I love when you sing "If He Ever Hated, I Never Saw It." To Chris's chagrin, every time that line comes up, I sing it in the car. Sorry, Chris. You don't get to hear George. You get to hear me singing it. But I love that line. And then you also sing "I Don't Want to Say Goodbye." And you're you mentioned the cancer, and you've talked a bit about that about your brother Wilson throughout this track, and it's a lovely homage to your brother. I just wanted to say that about Wilson. It's a great
Well,
song.
thanks. Yeah, he was a big influence. But there is one little story I want to tell about this song. We have every year we go to the beach with our extended family, and there's over 100 of us, and
Wow.
we go to the beach. Different families rent different houses, and we converge on the beach. And the year that Wilson was too sick to go, which was the summer before he died, my cousin Joanne came up to me and she said, "I want to do something for Wilson." And I said, "Okay, well, Neil, my brother Neil used to have this song called My First Real Love. He never left my side, my first love. He loved me first, my first real love. He never left my side, my first love. He loved me first. This is a song about Chris. When I see you, I realize you I miss. But you're sitting there next to Jeff, and we're all left to just go, ha! He never left my side." And it's one of those songs. It's a sing along. And now because I sang about Chris, now Chris is going to sing one.
Mm-hmm.
She'll go, "And this is a song about Soraya. The last time I saw her, she was beside you." You know, and then everybody sings the chorus. And so I said to Joanne, "Why don't we do a rendition of My First Real Love?" And so my youngest son, who at the time David was 12, he stood in the middle, and this was during the pandemic. He stood in the middle with an iPhone and filmed in a circle what would have been about 40 or 50 people in Wilson's extended family. And I was in the middle with him playing and leading the choruses. And each family had written a verse about Wilson and Tracy, his wife.
Oh, no.
And there was this little 12-minute video. And David cropped it, and sent it to Wilson and Tracy. I was told that Wilson watched it every day. And when one of the last things he said before he died was, "I want to see my video."
Aww.
And, for this family, that was, Wilson being the tall man in the back row. Everybody loved Wilson. When other people had little kids on the beach, Wilson had 5 of his own, but he was one of the ones. He was a lifesaver. He really did pull. In more than one time he pulled a kid out of the water and saved lives. So this song Wilson sort of it was just one of those ones that just kind of fell out of the air one day. Yeah.
Love it. Love it. See, and then how do you transition from that into Never Be Cold Again? Like I I can see these links between the stories and then I get to Never Be Cold Again.
When I was a boy, I dreamed of love. I grew annoyed and gave it up. Then I saw your smiling face, and where there was wrong, well, you took its place. But I'll never be cold again. No, I'll never be cold again. No, I'll never be cold again.
Here's the line where the song sold me. Where there was wrong, you took its place.
Yeah.
Uh, where did this song come from? Like, where in this musical landscape did this come from?
Well, I almost hate to say when this song was written, but it was written when the after 9/11 there was this period where the drum beating for war was in our culture every day, and President George Bush was heading us towards war, and every day we kept thinking, why? There were just so many reasons not to do what he was getting ready to do. And this song there's a lot of verses to this song that I didn't record because they're too dumb. They're too angry. I don't do anger very well. And there's a lot of verses that were just me purging this feeling of frustration that I could not control these drum beats. And to be quite honest, there were two families that we would go up camping with. We'd go to the lake with, and because they felt like we needed to do this war, I hate to say it, but that was the end of our friendship. It was I couldn't separate them from it anymore. And it was hard on my kids but I was younger then. I was like 40-ish. And, I think I played hard. It was a lot easier for me to play hardball back in those days with my friendships and my love life and everything. And so when I recorded this song, I really just, the reason Never Be Cold Again was recorded ahead of some others, because admittedly, this is probably in the stack of like 25 or 30 songs I was considering. This was really towards the bottom. But I think I really just liked the intro line. I think that line just sort of that sort of feeling of what is the first line again?
I think about all the things I've learned as I
As
watch this fire burn.
And what about all that I forgot? If it was wood, it would be a lot. And I think just that sort of like admission, that line just sort of kind of admission to myself that this too shall pass, sort of made the song seem a little bit more significant in the landscape, and maybe why it's after Wilson is that there's this sense of we've seen hard times, this too shall pass.
Okay.
And never be cold again, I think, is just a way of saying, but I'm not stupid. Bad things happen, but I'm gonna learn along the way.
True.
I'm glad that you're sharing this. I actually took it a different way, George, because when I didn't write down the lyrics, but there's the verse where it's like, when I was a boy, I dreamed of love, I think you're saying.
Annoyed.
Grew annoyed and gave it up and until I saw your face. I think of it like as a couple, and I relate that like to Chris, and I'm never gonna be cold again in bed because
Yeah.
we've got each other. So that's
Well,
the way, yeah.
I think it is about that too. I think it is about that too. I was surrounded by a lot of love at that time in my life. And I think, yeah, I found comfort and solace and warmth. Um, and so, yeah, I think that's true.
Maybe some of that too. Yeah.
Yeah.
So speaking about Christina, lovers can be friends.
Yeah.
But I don't know where I'm going, but I do know where I've been. And I hear that something's happening. Lovers can be friends.
Yeah.
So you end on a 3/4 time song. And you mentioned that the last group of songs was like the full band or whatever, but this is a very stripped down song, and we kind of ease out of the album with this very stripped down song.
Yeah. It was the very first song I recorded before the band got there that day that we were recording. We wanted to test the vocal mic. And so I just played Ryan that song. And I remember saying to Ryan that day, I just really like this song. It's got that whimsy. Um, it's just, it's a story, and I don't even really understand the story myself, but it felt like a journey. And in some ways, you know, uh, it felt appropriate. And so we talked about adding to it. We talked about putting Alex on there and having him sing backup. And then Ryan just said, I think we should just leave this really uh, exposed and open. And we just didn't do anything to it.
It's a beautiful way to end the album.
Mm-hmm.
George,
Thank you.
we have a few minutes left, about 9 minutes left. I don't know what room you're in. By any chance, do you have a guitar handy? Is there any way we could beg you to serenade us with?
Well, let me see.
Hey, is there any way we could hear one of these songs?
Sure.
Sounds good.
Chris says, or all of them, but
How does it sound?
so far so good.
I was a dreamer when I was young, and the best I was came and went, the best I could do. And I was alone back in high school, and the best I was came and went, the best we could do. Yes, it was the best I was came and went, the best we could do. The last rendezvous, another moment forward in time, and it's true, a real promenade. I got a fever at 99, but I'm here to let you know I'll be fine. If you're tired of your living, can you change what you do? Ooh, best I was came and went, the best I could do. Yes, it was best we was came and went, the last rendezvous, the best we could do. Young woman, forward in time, and real promenade. I got fever past 99, and I'm here to let you know you'll be fine. Best I was killing, best we could do. A last rendezvous, another moment forward in time, and it's true. A real promenade. I got a fever past 99, and I'm here to let you know you'll be fine. And I'm here to let you know you'll be fine. And I'm here to let you know you'll be fine.
Yay.
Yeah.
Chris, that one's for you.
I loved it. You sound the same.
Thank you. Thank you.
Sound great.
That
Oh
was
my.
amazing. As our listeners can hear this, and you've heard from the samples that we'll add in later, this is an amazing album. Chris, we've listened to this probably 60 times. Not available anywhere where you can buy, but it's available all streaming services, download. George, we want a CD or an album or something that we could buy that we could. So what we did is we downloaded the songs, we put them on a CD. It's been in the CD player in the car, and it hasn't left
Mm-mm.
for a month and a half. And so in California, we drive everywhere. So George, you're serenading us when we're going to Whole Foods, when we're going to get gas, when we're going to Costco, you're singing to us. So this album is incredible. Thank you so much for it. Thank you for taking time to talk to us about it and walk us through these songs. And we love you, George. Don't we,
I love
Chris?
Yep.
you too. Yeah. Y'all come back to Raleigh sometime.
We're
Now,
Yeah.
gonna come visit you.
We have to go see
Greenville,
our
North
daughter.
Carolina or Greenville, South Carolina?
North Carolina.
North Carolina. Okay.
Yeah, yeah. So she's a pirate.
Okay.
She,
All right.
yeah, she's a pirate. I think we owe you a breakfast because last time you paid and we said we would pay next time. So we owe you a breakfast. So
Yeah, I think
Wifey,
that's true.
hello. Tell the wifey hello.
I will. I will. It's so good to see y'all. And Soraya, thank you for your insights and participating in this.
Oh, you're welcome. No, this was a pleasure. Thank you so, so much.
I told you, George, she's the
Uh,
best.
Come on.
And I want to know if you like we were talking about with Farm Family Thanks, if you've got that chest full of poems and songs too, because it sounds like you got a lot more in you.
Yeah, I got a bunch. If you guys have not listened to NRBQ in Yankee Stadium lately, put it on as a summer. It's a great summer listen. We have a band from around here called the Countdown Quartet, and I got sort of accustomed with the Countdown Quartet at that Replacements thing. Dave Bartholomew did that with us, and when I was listening to the Countdown Quartet, they're great. I was reminded how much I love NRBQ's in Yankee Stadium and that record they did with Skeeter Davis. Great summer listening. We cook to it, we clean to it. It's as we march towards summer. It's our check it out.
Thank you for the recommendation.
Down, yeah.
We'll be all over that.
Y'all take care.
Thank you so
Thanks,
much.
George.
Bye.
Appreciate everything.
Bye.
Boop, boop.
So, what did you two think of George Huntley?
I'll let you go first, Chris.
I was hoping he'd sing that song. I love that song. I was
Well,
like, but Jeff said he was going to sing something else.
he
And
was
then
tricking you.
I know, I'm so glad
He
he sang
knew.
that song. I love that song. I love him. He's so nice.
nice guy, but wow, what an interesting storyteller,
Yeah, he's got some
and so many levels get woven into these songs. It's really nice to hear. And but I but I get it, 30 years um in between the previous album, and then we get this between Brain Junk and then this. Um and I get it, he said I was gifted this opportunity, to raise a family and do some different things, and but it sounds like music was never far,
No, I
you
think he's
know.
in church too, right? We saw something on Facebook, I think, that he sang in his church.
Mm.
I think you're right. Yeah.
And then before you came, Chris, he was saying that um, he would he got gospel music together, um, and it was to help. He found it was a good tool to help one of his brothers that was dealing with neuropathy. And he said, and when we would go see him, if he was singing songs, we knew he was having a rough day physically. But
What's
gospel music was, he called it, he said, we found that music is a molecular massage.
ah,
And I said, oh,
interesting.
that's really beautiful. But I'd love to hear what gospel songs he and his family sing,
Yeah,
because obviously music has been integrated into their family for a long, long time, be
yeah.
it through poetry that became songs, or,
Awesome.
this beautiful story of this family sing-along at the
Oh my
beach,
gosh, I
a
know.
song for his brother, you
That's,
know,
I would love to see that video. I got
Well,
goosey when he said
I know
that.
Chris is like,
right? 12 minutes, 100 plus people, and each family, 12 different families had different
Version.
verse to add, you know? I think these are the things that I enjoyed hearing was I told Jeff that when I finished the album, it felt like a hug. It just felt very warm
Yeah,
and welcoming, and it felt like family, right? And
that's
so now hearing all these stories, I go, okay, there's a reason for that. And I just think he's got a lot to say, and music is his vehicle. And so, I wasn't surprised when he said, oh, I got more. I wasn't too surprised. Or that he was picking from 25 to 30 songs, Jeff.
yeah.
yes,
But think
yeah.
about what didn't make it.
I know, I know. And my question was going to be, was he working on another one? But
Yes, that
yeah,
Hands down, he's got to be.
I'm hoping,
yeah,
right?
we're hoping for more
And
for
he
sure.
sounds exactly the same, like when he was younger. He sounds exactly the same. And he hasn't changed. He looks the same.
See? See,
Good.
as long as we all don't change, he said you hadn't changed in 35 years, so he hasn't changed, but he's got a lot to say and a voice to do it with. But it also makes me kind of scratch my head. If he was writing this much, he was only being given, like a song to
Mm.
sing when he was with the Connells.
We loved to hear him sing when he was at the Connells.
Yeah,
We would always wait for him,
yeah, we were waiting for his
for him
songs.
to get to come up and
And yeah, and it's a very heartful, soulful voice. Um, and I like how he goes, my brother wasn't as emotional as me when he was talking about the story about Chi Chi.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And he said, but he was my leader. I looked to him as, hold on, I wrote it down because I liked how he said it. Uh, he said, my brother Wilson was a leader in my life.
Mhm.
And so if he thought it was best that we should leave Chi Chi and not have her see us,
Yeah.
we just did that.
I
And
thought we
so,
heard that story before about the monkey, but maybe not as extent, but
Hmm.
I
Yeah.
thought we might have heard something.
Yeah. A little bit of it sounded familiar, but definitely not that
Yeah, to
rounded
that.
out. So
Yeah.
that he definitely rounded out that story for us. And listening to these songs, like I said, The album's not that long. I mean, it's probably 35. It's got to
It's
be.
the length that you love, Jeff. Quick. It's
Yeah,
like it,
exactly.
and it transitions really nicely
Mhm.
track to track. So you don't realize the time that just went by
Yeah.
because it just feels like, it's moving so like in the blink of an eye, you're at the end of the album. Wait, what?
Yeah, we can go down to San Diego and come back and listen to it 4 or 5 times. So
Okay, and that's a trip that takes you what?
35, well, it depends with traffic.
No,
Sometimes an hour.
he doesn't take the CD out. So when I use the car, because we only have one car right now, it's on. I turn the car on and it comes right on. It's
There
like
you
it's
go.
literally in there all the time.
George is coming out of our speakers all the time.
Mm.
But we did the same thing with Brain Junk, Chris. We listened to this one so many times. You remember back in when we had Mo, the
Yeah.
VW van?
I think I even said, when is he going to sing again?
Yeah. Yeah. It's been a while, so we're thankful for this one. Hopefully the next one will come soon.
So,
So
is the first time you've heard him?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I really liked it. I
Yeah.
really liked the album.
thank you so much for letting us have George on. I thought if there was going to be a time, this was the time slot. The window was open for a little bit, and not sure that it would happen again. But with us covering some of the jangly stuff that we've been covering,
Oh, it was a perfect fit.
it was a perfect fit. Yeah. So
And I'm good with that song.
Yes, ma'am. And you
It
got
must
your own
stay.
private version of it.
Yay!
dedicated to my
Exciting.
wife.
Exciting.
There you go. And now we all know we got to say pecan.
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 Yes,
Oh
yes.
my gosh. But thank you to George Huntley. This was really a lovely surprise.
Yes, very much.
Mhm.
Really enjoyed that. So we're going to take a little break from podcasting for a couple weeks. Soraya's going to do a little bit of traveling and have safe travels.
Thank you.
We'll be thinking about you, praying for your
For your
safety,
trip.
uh,
Thank you.
praying that you get back into this country okay
Hey.
with all family members. Everybody gets back in,
Oh
uh,
boy.
and then once you get back in the summertime, we'll jump back into it. We got a few ideas. Ronnie's got a few ideas for us, so we're
We
not
always
done.
got some
Yeah,
always have some up our sleeves, so
indeed we
but
do.
I do want to take this opportunity to say for everyone that's out there traveling, going about, whether here in the States or in Europe, in Asia, wherever you are, just be safe. We can't wait to have you listen to more episodes and hear more of the surprises that are coming because more are coming. And
Agree.
some that are, well, I won't say anything, but some that are really, really nice surprises
Yes, indeed.
coming soon.
Ooh, huh?
It's a
Hey,
surprise.
well, wait till we hang up and then we'll fill you in. You'll be the in. But yeah, everybody just take care. We'll be back in a couple of weeks and yeah,
We
be
will.
well, be good, and may better days be ahead.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, see, George has optimism. I'm gonna take that optimism and adopt it. Yeah,
Me too.
everything's gonna be okay.
Bring George back.
No more words needed. Mi gente a grubiar.
Groove on, Paisley people.
Bye.
Come on back, George. Pecan.
It's so peacock. So we'll click back onto that, and then we'll start up with Last Rendezvous.
Well, if something happens between now and then, it's been really great.
Anything could happen, George.
That's true.